Hello, my name is Josh North, and I was once a porn addict, sex addict, alcoholic, fame chaser. Um, but I had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ, and He made me into a new creation. And I wanted to share my story with you guys. Um, I was born into a house that had New Age beliefs. Spiritual is what you would call us. My mom was a New Age teacher, counselor, guru to many. Um, and those were the beliefs that I was brought into this world. That's what I was taught. I was not taught Jesus Christ. I was not taught the Bible, and I was discouraged from having really anything to do with it. Um, at age 4, one of my older brothers lived with us, and I remember one night he put in a movie in the living room, and I just sat down to watch the movie. And at one point, there was a sex scene in it, and I'd never seen sex before. But the sex scene was happening, and I remember watching that, and then all of a sudden, like, there was screaming in the next room, and the two people ran into the next room, and there's the next scene is that there's a man literally slicing a woman's face with a razor, and and then there was the violence, and it traumatized me. My introduction to sex followed by this violent scene, and it was traumatizing. But it was also fascinating, and I wanted to seek out more of that. And I remember convincing my father to let me rent rated R movies, and I would rent these scary movies that had this violence in it. And I also noticed that, like, most every single one had a sex scene in it too. So it's like I was getting two in one in one movie, and I was traumatizing myself. And I look back now and I realize what I was going after was to be traumatized over and over again. That was the high, that was the rush. At age 10, my mom started counseling a boy who was 4 years older than me, and she was counseling him, trying to help him with his own sexual abuse that happened to him as a child, as a young little baby, basically. And after the counseling sessions, him and I would hang out and wait for his mom to pick him up. And I remember him asking me if I ever have huffed gasoline. And I said, no, I never have. And he convinced me to try huffing gasoline with him. And that seemed to be what we did after the counseling sessions. We'd huff gasoline together while we waited for his mom to come pick him up. It then moved into him telling me about girls that he went to school with and the sexual things he wished he could do with them. And then he convinced me to do sexual things with him and to him. And basically, I was being molested at age 10. And with the gasoline and the molestation, my life basically fell apart. I stopped going to school. My social life was non-existent. I had very few friends. I gained a lot of weight from being inactive, and my relationship with my parents suffered because I was not listening to the house rules and not going to school. And this went on for 3 years, and nobody knew and nobody asked. And I think that's the saddest part. And 3 years later, I had another brother who was much older than me dragged me out of my house because I wasn't following the rules of my own house. And my father didn't lead our home. It was my mother, and my mother couldn't control me. So I had to go live with my brother, and he basically forced me to follow his rules, forced me to go to school, and no wasn't an option. So basically, I learned discipline through that time, and honestly, I can say that was the best thing that could have happened to me, and probably saved my life. After living with him, I was going through puberty, so I started losing the weight that I had gained and getting taller. And I went back to school for the next year, and I started noticing that girls were taking interest in me, and I started making friends, and It basically was my motivation to go to school, was to have these friends and these girl interests, and so I became really popular and basically became what I always dreamed of becoming, which was somebody who was liked and accepted. When I got into high school, I ended up dating this girl who was a year older than me. She was popular, and basically, like, I hit the jackpot, I felt, and I immediately wrapped up my whole identity in her. Like, I was her boyfriend, and that was my identity. And when the relationship ended, I took it very hard, and I lost my identity because it was all wrapped up in her. So I needed to make a new identity. So I chose, I'm gonna do music. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a musician, because they're cool, and that's my new identity. And while exploring music, I realized that it was actually very healing to the pain that I was holding. And so I just like delved headfirst into learning music, and learning instruments and singing, and making albums. And I stopped hanging out with all my friends, and that's what I became, was a musician. 2 years of that, come age 18, I was accepted into a prestigious music school on the East Coast, and simultaneously my parents dropped the bomb on me that they were going to divorce after 25 years, and I didn't know what to do with that. All I could think of doing was stuffing the pain down and saying, well, I'm going to run to music and money and fame, and that's going to satisfy me and heal me. And I don't need them. I don't need the family. And so I moved to the East Coast, and it didn't solve any problems. There was a hole inside my heart that developed early on there from my parents' divorce that lasted for a very long time. And I just tried to pretend like I wasn't in pain and just doing the music thing. And eventually I felt I needed to find a girlfriend, because that would give me a sense of family, because I felt very alone. And so I found a girl, became infatuated with her again, wrapped my identity up in her. And when the relationship ended, I ended. And that was it. I mean, that was just too much to have another person abandon me. Well, like, I felt like my parents abandoned me, and my first girlfriend, and all that stuff is just too much. So I tried to find healing in porn, and escape and coping in porn. And so I started watching a lot of porn, and I eventually became addicted to it, and that was what I needed to escape from the pain. I was in music school for 2 years, and then I dropped out halfway through my program because I was severely addicted to porn by that time, and I was very lonely and really messed up. And so I came back home and lived with my dad and tried to just like get a normal job and live a normal life, but that didn't last long. And I felt like, well, I'm just going to move to Hollywood, and that will be my my dream come true, and I'll do that. And so, I enrolled into a music school in Hollywood, and was learning guitar at the music school, and was singing, around, auditioning for other bands. And one day I got a call from a lady who said that she was with a guitar player, and that I'd auditioned for his band a couple weeks ago, and that she wanted me to sing for her band that she's putting together because she heard good things from the guitar player. She told me about getting us a record deal and Capitol Records interest in us and whatever. And she said, come meet me. So I went down and I met her in Hollywood, and she was telling me about like red carpets that she's going to do. They're already set up, and hey, in fact, we're going to one tonight. Why don't you come? So I decided to go, and I realized, wow, she's actually backing up what she said. I was on a red carpet event, getting my picture taken, standing right next to rock stars and actors and actresses that I'd grown up admiring. And I thought, wow, okay, this lady can back up what she says. So I started doing these red carpets and building this band with her. And very early on, I realized that this was a lifestyle I didn't know if I could sustain. There was always free alcohol. There was always people that looked like they were on some sort of drug, and everybody was putting on this facade like they were trying to portray somebody that wasn't who they were. And all these people are taking pictures of us, and they didn't even really know who we were. They were just told that we might be somebody by the publicist. And so basically, it came down to us being presented a contract, the guitar player and I, to sign a 7-year contract with this manager, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because I felt I can't sustain this. This is a lifestyle I can't sustain, and I didn't even know Jesus. I just knew this was too dark. So I basically told the guitar player, the manager gave us all these silver rings, and I gave it to the guitar player, said, give this to Abby, tell her I'm out. And I silently left Hollywood without saying bye to anybody. And I left with my dreams shattered. And I came back home, and again, didn't have any other idea what to do other than just get a normal job. So I got a normal job, and again, I just couldn't do the normal job thing. And so I decided, well, I'll just do music in a different way, and I'll create a new dream of music. So I quit my job and I moved into a motorhome, and I joined an established Seattle band, and tried the music dream in a different way. And while living in the motorhome, I didn't have a job, so I wasn't doing anything during the days. So what I did was just drink alcohol all day until it was band practice. And very shortly I realized I didn't have a private place to watch porn, and I didn't have an internet connection. So I decided to go on dating websites and start just doing the real thing, meeting girls to hook up with. And that became like a full-time job. And I was going on like 2 or 3 dates a day. And hoping that I was drinking all day and hoping that they didn't know I'd been drinking. And I basically was getting my addiction filled that way, which turned into a full-on sex addiction. Became obsessed with finding girls and different girls and having sex with them. And I broke a lot of people's hearts during that time, because what I learned from these girls is that they were giving out the sex in hopes that would draw me in to commit to them. And that's like the worst thing a girl can do for a guy. And it broke a lot of hearts, and I feel really bad for that. And this cycle went on for a couple years. And eventually, I left the band I was in, and it just wasn't fulfilling me, and I couldn't live in that lifestyle anymore. And then I got news that my mom was terminally ill, and she had something called Lewy body dementia, and it was only a matter of time before she died. And that was just a lot to hear. And so again, did what I always do, stuffed it down, found an escape in porn and alcohol. And during this time, my music dreams have all fallen apart. So I decided, well, I'll just take over my mom's new age schools, because she's dying and somebody's got to do that. And my mom was very successful. Like, she had clients that were household names, people that you would know, everybody knows. And those were her clients. And I thought, well, this is a way for me to be somebody, be successful, make a lot of money, and it's perfect. I've already been trained in New Age. I'll just take it over. I already have everything I need. So that was my goal. And during that same time, I met a girl who was different than any girl I'd ever met before. And she was just amazing. And turns out she was Christian. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, well, enough time with me, she'll become enlightened and I'll teach her New Age, and that Christian thing will go out the window. So basically, she met me at the pinnacle of who I was as a monster. And she endured a lot. There was a whole year to where I took out a lot of my pain on her. Basically, like, sexually, I'd put her in positions to make her feel like she needed to do this for me. Manipulation, horrible stuff. And she endured it, and she was patient, and and it's hard, real hard. But in May of 2014, my mom died, and that was too much. She was my mom. She was my spiritual teacher. She was a lot to me, and she was gone. So I just dove headfirst into alcohol, porn, and I'd break up with my girlfriend and for the weekend so I could do whatever I wanted, then come back together with her and do that whole game. I was so horrible at being a boyfriend. And it was July 4th of 2014, and I remember breaking up with my girlfriend so I could have freedom for the holiday or whatever I was thinking. And I remember waking up and just getting a bottle of wine and just drinking it all day and thinking, I'm gonna hook up with a girl tonight. So I text this girl that I used to hook up with, and she was all for it, and I knew it would be an easy companion. But then I thought, no, let's make it exciting, and let's meet somebody completely new. And so I decided to look online for ads of sexual encounters, and found this girl who seemed like she was looking for the same thing I was, and told the girl I used to hook up with, I'm not hanging out with you, and invited this stranger over. And she comes over, and we barely talked to each other before we were engaging in sexual activity. And I fulfilled her dark fantasy, and then I couldn't even perform because I was so drunk. So when it ended, I was supposed to take her out to dinner, but I basically kicked her out and said, you got to go. And she left, and I went to bed and woke up the next morning feeling a guilt to a level that I've never experienced before. And I knew I needed to tell this information to my girlfriend if I ever wanted to have a chance to be with her again. And I knew that if I told her this, that was the end. She would not take me back. And so I held on to that information for 3 days, just drinking alcohol, watching porn, trying to numb any way that I could. And then on the third day, I woke up completely hungover, and I thought, I'm not going to drink today. I'll just watch porn to escape. And so I watched porn once, masturbated. About 30 minutes later, came back, watched more porn, masturbated. But this time I was walking to the bathroom, and it's like every cell in my body just shut down. And I collapsed. I just completely collapsed to the floor. And I was hopeless, and I just crawled over to this corner, and I put my hands together, and I just said the most sincere prayer I've ever said in my life. And I just said, God, help me, God, please. I can't do this anymore. Help me, God. And all the walls that I had built up over the years, and the hardened heart that I had, it all melted away and fell away because I didn't have the strength to hold it anymore. And I don't remember being led from that corner to my laptop, but I was at my laptop, and I remember going to YouTube and typing in Christian testimony. And I don't watch Christian testimonies. I've never seen a Christian testimony in my life. I wanted nothing to do with Christianity. Here I was typing in Christian testimony, and I remember scrolling down and seeing a video that said Brian Welch, a story of change. And I remembered Brian Head Welch, who was the guitarist of Korn, that left Korn after having a Jesus experience. And I even read his book years back, but forgot about it. And I remember watching him speak about what Jesus did in his life, and it was so inspiring. And I remember after 45 minutes of watching that, feeling this confidence and this power and this lightness and this peace that I've never experienced before. And it was amazing. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my girlfriend and just basically saying, like, hey, I did something on 4th of July, and I've been holding it for 3 days. I feel so horrible about it, but I just had this experience that I can't explain. I collapsed on the floor. I prayed to God. I was led to my computer. I watched this Christian testimony, and I feel these feelings of peace and confidence and feelings I've never felt before, and I don't know what's going on. And there was silence on the other line. And then she said, last night I prayed that Jesus would come into your life and save you. And it's like my whole world started spinning, and I'm thinking to myself, is this Jesus that I'm experiencing? And after that, I just needed to figure out who Jesus was. Who was this Jesus? And I remember just watching all these testimonies of people encountering Jesus, and they all experienced essentially the same thing I experienced, which was, the presence of God coming into their life. And And I just was amazed. And I started feeling like, you know, I, I I've been wrong this whole time. New Age is nothing, and this is something. And I remember going deep into um, heaven and hell because my mom had just died, and listening to near death experiences, and people visiting heaven and people visiting hell, and because I thought my mom went to one of these places. And I remember one night researching hell and getting really deep into it, and thinking like, my mom wasn't a professing Christian. Did she go here? And I remember going to bed that night, and I remember waking up at around 6 in the morning, and it was still dark out, and I was laying on my side and I couldn't move. And all of a sudden I felt a shift of weight on my bed, and it was like somebody was crawling into the bed with me, and I couldn't move. And all of a sudden I feel this like something getting closer to my face, and it's like when somebody gets close to you, you can feel their presence. And I remember feeling heat as they got closer, and all of a sudden I heard blah, and I could feel the heat of the breath, and it was this guttural, disgusting sound, and I couldn't move and I couldn't speak, so all I could do was think. And so I started thinking, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that which is not of the light, be gone now. And just thinking this over and over and over. And then I felt the presence start to back off. And then I started speaking it when I could finally speak. And I was saying, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that which is not of the light, be gone now. And the presence just kept dissipating. And then I kept saying that until it was completely gone. And after that, I realized everything I've experienced is true, and Jesus Christ is real, and he is the Son of God, and he's God in the flesh, and he is God, and everything in the Bible is true, and he died for my sins. And I hadn't even read the Bible yet, but I knew that what I was going to read in there was true. And I remember the next day giving my life to Jesus Christ, and asking forgiveness for my sins, and accepting him as my Lord and Savior. And directly after that, I remember throwing away all my DVD collection that had sex and violence and all the stuff that I've watched my whole life. I just threw it away. I didn't give it away. I threw it away. I wanted nobody else to have it. And anything that was not of the light or Jesus, I wanted nothing to do with. And ever since then, Jesus has changed my heart. He's been changing my heart, turning me into a new creation. The girl that prayed for me, I'm now married to her. We now have two kids that will never know that person that I just explained to you. They'll never see me that way because that person died. That person died and is no longer. I'm born again. I'm a new creation. And you can't ask for more than that. I've received the greatest gift anybody can receive. I've experienced my dreams. I've lived my dreams. It's left me empty, and I there's just nothing that can compare to the love of Jesus Christ and being saved and comforted and held by him. It says in the Bible, in this life you'll face trials, and I did, and I have. It doesn't get easier when you become a Christian. In my case, it became harder because you're not accepted by a lot of people anymore, but you're accepted by Jesus Christ, and there's no more important acceptance than that. And I just wanted to share this with you guys, and my sex and porn addiction and my alcoholism, it slowly over the years has released its grips. And I'm not perfect. I've relapsed on porn since being a Christian. I've drank alcohol and gotten drunk since being a Christian, but that's only because I choose that in those moments rather than pressing into God. It says in the Bible, any time that you choose God in temptation, he will show you a way out. You always have a choice. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you don't know Jesus, seek Jesus. This is what he's done in my life, and he can do this in your life. And I promise you guys, it's not made up. It's real. I've experienced it firsthand. It's real, guys. And he can make you a new creation. If you want that, seek him. Seek him. Anyways, I love you guys, and I encourage you, and I hope that you find Jesus, and I hope Jesus finds you. All right, God bless.